Chapter 5 Markup as a Merchandising Tool Part 2. Today, I'll continue to talk about the markup that you learned the last time. You learned the markup definition and markup as a percent based on retail and cost the last time, and today I will cover basic markup calculation, markup percent on a group of items, and timing of markup. And today you will do more example practices. So let's go and start from the basic markup calculation. A buyer works with markup in three different ways. You can calculate markup percent if you know cost and retail. And you can calculate the retail if you know cost and markup percent. Because your markup is gonna be the difference between the cost and retail, and also retail is gonna be the combination of the cost and markup. And calculating the cost when retail and markup percent are known, because cost will be retail minus markup. So let's start to talk about this calculating markup percent when cost and retail are known. To evaluate if an item will reach the department's ultimate goal before purchasing, you need to calculate this markup percent. And when I just ask you to calculate this markup, then you will use this retail method. And your markup can be calculated as markup dollars divided by retail dollar. So let's look at the example. What is the markup percent on a jacket that costs $66 and retails for $120? In this example, you know the cost of the jacket and you know the retail price of the jacket. And the difference between these two is gonna be dollar markup. And if you know the dollar markup and dollar retail, you can calculate the markup percent. In this example, I just asked you to calculate the markup percent. I didn't say calculate the markup percent based on the cost or something. So if I just ask you to calculate the markup, that means that I want you to use the retail method. So let's look at this. Markup percent can be calculated as markup dollar divided by the retail dollar. Then what you have to do first, you have to calculate this markup dollar. How can you calculate this markup dollar? There you go. That's going to be the difference between the cost and the retail. So that is 120 minus 66. And you have to divide it by 120, that retail dollar. So what is the markup dollar? That is $54. And you will divide it by retail price, which is 120, and you will get 0.45, and it is 45%. So you can say that your markup percent is 45%. Now let's look at how to calculate retail when cost and markup percents are known. To evaluate the retail prices that will be placed on merchandise considering the cost price and the necessary markup, you need to be able to calculate this. And retail is gonna be cost divided by the cost percent. And it will be cost divided by 100 minus markup percent. Because 100 is considered as a retail percent, so 100 minus markup percent is gonna be cost percent. If you do it like this, you can calculate the retail price. So let's look at the example. Calculate the retail price on a sofa table that costs the store $420 and has a 52% markup. For this example, you can calculate the cost in percent. So retail is gonna be cost divided by cost percent. So where is the cost? You have 420, right? And how about the cost percent? It's not given, but you can calculate it. How can you do it? It's gonna be retail minus markup percent. So that case, I said always the retail is gonna be 100%, so 100 minus 52 is gonna be your cost percentage. So you can do cost 420 divided by 100 minus 52. And that will be $420 divided by the 48%. Then what do you get? You will get $875. So that is your retail price. So now you see, you can calculate your retail price if you know the cost and if you know the cost percent. And even though you don't know the cost percent, you can calculate it based on your markup percent and your retail percent, because your retail percent is gonna be always 100. Now let's look at how to calculate cost when retail and markup percents are none. This is to determine price the buyer can afford to pay for each item in order to achieve the markup goal. And here is the way to calculate the cost dollar. That's gonna be retail dollar multiplied with the cost percent. And retail dollar multiplied by 100 minus markup percent is gonna be same, because 100 is gonna be retail percentage, and if you minus the markup percent out of it, then you can get the cost percent. So let's look at this example. Determine the cost of a dress that retails for $180 and has 55% markup. Okay, so what you have to do first, how can you calculate the cost? I mean, you know the retail, and what you have to do, you have to calculate the cost percent, which is gonna be 100 minus 55. So 180 retail dollar multiplied with the cost percent is gonna be 100 minus 55. That's gonna be your cost, and that is 180 multiplied with the 45%, and 180 multiplied with the 0.45 is gonna be $81. So you can say that the cost of that dress is gonna be $81. Okay, let's go to the next one. Now you can calculate markup percent on a group of items, not just for the single item. That's what you've done so far, and now we're going to calculate the markup percent on a group of items. This markup percent can be calculated on a group of items with different costs and different values, retail values. Markup is calculated on a group of items to determine markup percent on an entire order or shipment. So what you have to do, hint is gonna be, you have to calculate the total retail and total cost. Then you can easily calculate this, markup percent. Once again, total everything first for the dollar amount. Then you can calculate this markup percent. So let's look at this example. Find the markup percent on the following order. You have, 3 different types of, product, including the skirt, blouses, and belts, and you have different costs for each item. And for this example, you want to calculate the total markup percent. Then what you have to do, once again, you have to calculate the total retail and total cost. So if you multiply the quantity and the cost, then you can calculate this like a total cost. On the left-hand side, I'll show you the cost, total cost. And on the right-hand side, you can see the retail. For the skirt, how many skirts? 14 skirts and 20 at cost. That's gonna be 280. And for the retail, it's gonna be 14 multiplied with the 45. So that cost 280 total for 14 skirts, and it will be retailed at 630 for total of these 14 skirts. How about the blouses? It's the same. What you're gonna do, 25 blouses multiplied with the cost and also multiply that with the retail. And belt. 10 belts at cost of $16, then that's gonna be 160, and that's gonna be retailed as 30. So 10 multiplied with the 30, then you will get 300. And next, the hint again. You have to combine all these costs and all these retail. So total cost was 890, and your total retail was 1,930. Now you know this cost, total cost, and you know total retail. So now what you have to do to calculate, what is the question? So also think about the question, what I ask. I asked you to find the markup percent, but you only know the cost and retail. But if you know the cost and retail, you can calculate the markup, right? Because that's the difference between these two. So retail minus cost is gonna be your markup. So you're gonna calculate this dollar amount of the markup, which is gonna be 1,930 minus 890. So $1,040 is gonna be the total dollar amount of the markup, and you will divide it by total retail, because when you calculate the markup, if I don't say anything about markup percent based on the cost, you have to always put this total retail and the retail price at the bottom. So it's gonna be 1,040 divided by the retail, which is 1,930, and you will get this 53886. So you can say is 53.89%. And don't forget, you have to round this up to the second decimal point. So that's that. And now let's look at the timing of markup. Markup of merchandise can change throughout the selling season for many different reasons. Because, you have like a more shipping and you have to have more expenses, then maybe you want to increase some of this markup. And also because of some product not sold well, your actual maintained markup will be different. So you have to think about that. There will be like some changes of this markup throughout the season. And depending on the markup timing, we said that there are 3 different markup: initial markup, cumulative markup, and maintained markup. And initial markup is gonna be your plan, right? So as it said, it's gonna be initial markup that you make a plan based on all these expenses and your planned profit and planned sales and so on. You can calculate this initial markup. And also cumulative markup, that's gonna be what you wanna check in the middle of the time. So you're gonna calculate it based on the new merchandise or some merchandise you already had. And maintained markup, that's gonna be your final actual maintained markup. So it can be different. Oftentimes it's really different from your initial markup, because you wanna make your initial markup higher, but something happened once again because of the markdowns and so on. Maybe your maintained markup can be reduced. And to understand this, I also want you to understand about this sell-through percent, sell-through rate. Sell-through percent is a measure that tells how much of the style or product has been sold. So if you have like a total merchandise, and let's say you have 100 shirts and you sold 80 out of these 100, and you can calculate it based on this, how much you sold, how many items you sold, and your actual merchandise you had. So 80 divided by 100, so you can say like 80% were sold. So based on this sell-through percent, you can kind of tell how much of the style or product has been sold. And this is gonna be the best indicator of the selling success of an item. So if you have a higher sell-through percent, that means that it sold well. And we're gonna talk more about this in the chapter 6 next time. So just hold on to this, and we can talk more about that the next time. But I want you to know about the concept, since this is gonna be important and will be related to the markup and the selling. Okay, that's already it for chapter 5 part 2.